forgot to start it because I had a little weird thing happen at the start. So anyway, the Robo-Dope Radio podcast is now live on YouTube. There is a link. I'm just going to do the first chunk of the show live for those who are going to follow there. There's a link right in the description box that will help you out as far as listening to the rest of the show when I do, in fact, shut that down, just so you know. So there's that. So anyway, we have another installment, in fact, the last quarterfinal installment of the World Boxing Super Series. It started early September, went 8 straight weeks. This is the 8th week. Brahmer against Brandt. Now, Robert Brandt is a guy who was basically a middleweight who was just trying to become a contender, started moving into contender range, and then got this opportunity to go up to super middleweight and compete in this tournament. So he went for it, which I think is pretty cool. Looking forward to it. And Brandt is from St. Paul, Minnesota. So got a little hometown cooking here. You know what I mean? He's not going to have hometown cooking, though. I think it's in Germany. Pretty sure the fight's in Germany. So I did hear that his trainer, who might win Trainer of the Year, by the way, is game planning Brandt to win by knockout because of the potential of being robbed in Germany. So that's kind of interesting. In a sense, not really, though. On the other side of the spectrum, you could go, well, man, I don't know if that's not really his style per se, is to go for the knockout. So we'll see how that plays out. But we'll preview the rest of the schedule. And, of course, we got to look back at the weekend that was a very steady, busy weekend in the sport. Speaking of the World Boxing Super Series, Murat Gassiv scored a KO in resounding fashion. Big body shot, big uppercut. Looked like Tyson, actually, as far as the combination, the uppercut to the head and then the left hook to the body. Gassiv knocked out a dude that had never been stopped. Very impressive. He moves on now in the tournament. And, of course, we got to talk about the HBO card. Burnett against ZZ was a fun fight. That was a really fun fight. Burnett really showed his overall skill set in that one. Machado, down on the scorecard, against Corrales, Machado knocks out Corrales, and I'll tell you what, that was a great exchange knockout too, man. That was a great shot, just a perfect shot. And also Demetrius Andrade returned to action as well. So we'll start with recap, of course, and then we'll get into some news. There were some fights either finalized, being rumored as far as a date. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll also talk about Gennady Golovkin. Sounds like he was visiting a state where he believes that his next fight will be held. He's going to stage his next fight in this state that we'll talk about, which is kind of interesting because it makes you think, well, so does that mean Golovkin's going to fight somebody before he fights Canelo? Or is he just trying to get it out of Vegas, which is going to be hard to do because Vegas always outbids everybody. So be interesting to see how that works. And you know, what ultimately comes from that. I think that'll be really interesting to see. Hopefully, and you know what? Man, this is kind of all right. False alarm. For a second there, I thought something had gone really wrong, but it was actually just a different screen. So we're good to go. So we will cover some other news as well. There's some UK news for some well-known fighters as well that we'll cover. So we'll definitely start with recap from what was, like I mentioned, a fairly busy weekend. And then we'll get into some news, and then we'll look into this weekend, which is a decent weekend. You know what I mean? And thank God for this Super Series or Super 6 Series. Super 6. It's funny because I haven't called that tournament the Super Six in so long. And it's funny because, man, all right, we're good. All right, sorry. I just had to take care of this real quick. It's funny, too, because the Super Six was right around this time. I believe about 8 years ago was the start. And the reason why I know that is because this is right around, we're probably a week off. I think it was mid-August or mid-October when we started the Rope It Up Radio podcast back in the day. Me, Joe Abib, Joshua Jernigan, Ashy Knuckles, a.k.a. Ashy Knuckles, and then D-Style and a variety of people helped us. Khaled Boxing, a lot of people helped us. Can't even name all the people that helped us, but pretty damn sure it was right around the Super Six, and obviously that was a six-man tournament at the super middleweight, division, and it had like a round robin effect for 3 rounds, and then they had a semis and a finals, and it was cool. It was a great idea. You got extra points. It was like a bracket style. You got extra points if you scored a knockout, but obviously when you have that many fights and that many fighters, it does cause some issues, and the injuries were an issue, but it's kind of like a nice little anniversary, so to speak. Several episodes back, we went over 600 episodes as well for the Rope It Up Radio, and that consists of the college ball show as well, which is college football right now. Later in January, it'll be college basketball, and then later in April, after basketball season for college anyway, then it'll be the NBA playoffs. And I like to thank people, that listen to both the boxing and the other stuff too. Definitely appreciated. But yeah, it's kind of nice, man. So it's been about 8 years. I just figured that out randomly. I was like, yeah, it's been about 8 years since we started the Rope It Up Radio podcast. So everybody that's helped, everybody that's called in, I definitely want to send my appreciation and love out to everybody. You know what I mean? Definitely the support has been great, and it's going to keep going. It's definitely going to keep going. But yeah, we definitely have a little milestone of over 600 episodes, and the Super Series, the Boxing Super, the World Boxing Super Series, not the Super Six, but the World, not Sweet 16. It's the World Boxing Super Series, and kind of got off. What was I going to say about that anyway? I kind of went on a little tangent because I wanted to make sure I got that out. I wanted to thank everybody that has been listening to the show. There's people that have been listening to the show all 8 years. There's people that have caught up the last couple of years, the last 6 months, the last month. So definitely, appreciate to everybody. So let's start this show out, shall we? Okay, so it does sound like I just got a text from somebody that's very helpful, but it sounds like the sound is not as good as I thought it was. So I'm going to just kind of do a random thing here and see if this works at all. I don't think it is working, but I just want to make sure, because it shouldn't sound exactly like she described it. It shouldn't sound that way. It should sound a little bit different. But the only way... Oh, all right. Once I started messing with this stuff, some of this is my fault too. Because once I started messing with it, it hasn't been the same. So some of this is my fault too, I do have to say. So I wonder if this just needs to be turned down a little bit. Check, check, check. I think I'm good to go there. Can you hear me now? I wonder. It's kind of strange, but now I can't hear out of that one. And this should be working. Is it back to what it sounded like before? Before I just tweaked some stuff, and maybe you couldn't hear me for a little bit. I wanted to just make sure that I was, yeah, I don't know, man. Says, I think it's the same stuff. All right. Well, sometimes you just can't get it exactly right. I just hope that you're at least hearing it. That's all I really hope, I guess, in the end. No, I actually do want it back to how it should be. But anyway, I should just kind of, as long as you guys can hear me, that's all that counts right now. I should really just focus on doing this show here. And I think you guys can hear me. So anyway, but I do appreciate everybody that's texting me right now. I do appreciate it. Don't get me wrong. I definitely appreciate it. So anyway, Demetrius Andre, by the way, signed a 3-fight deal, which probably is more like a 4-fight deal because of that option, you know. Yeah, I'm getting a couple of texts now. It doesn't really make sense what I wonder if that's going to screw it up. Well, we'll find out because you guys will definitely relay the message to me that you can't hear me. So maybe that straightens it a little bit out about what a couple people texted me a little bit ago. I'm not sure. I think so. I think it is. But we'll see. We will see. Anyway, so Andre got the win. It does sound like Fox was hurt, though. So that has to be put into the equation. Definitely has to be put in the equation. Yeah, I actually just heard that he was hurt. I can't remember exactly what the injury was, but he was hurt during the fight. So he got an easy win. It'll be interesting to see. You know, they're all in. HBO is at middleweight. They're all in. So I don't know. I don't know exactly what that means and how much they're going to be pushing Andre and who really, let's be honest, who really wants to fight him. You know what I mean? I don't know. So we'll see if that if he gets some fights. We'll see if he can get some fights. Because I just, unless there's a belt, even if it's like an interim belt or something, I doubt they're going to put Danny Jacobs in the ring with Andre for no belt. You know? And obviously the Billy Joe Saunders Lemieux, that could be interesting. That at least gets the belt on HBO somewhat, right? If Lemieux were to win, though, I doubt Golden Boy would want to put him in with Andre. Why not go and get a Canelo fight or you know, something else? So it'll be interesting to see. But Andre looked pretty good. He definitely, I don't know, it was like 11-1 or 10-2 or something. Like I said, I did want to mention that he was hurt in the fight. So yeah, I don't really know exactly. I don't really know exactly how bad it was, but it sounds like it was kind of bad. I also mentioned Murat Gassiv beating Valarchik. Valarchik, I believe, had never been stopped. Christoph Valarchik. Couple of sweeping right hands in the first round by Gassiv. Valarchik managed to get like like his jab a little bit going. He did land some good body shots as well, but it's not like Gassiv jab wasn't pumping as well. And I'd say about midway through the second round, he stepped up the pace a tad, and he landed a great left hook, uppercut and left hook body combination. And it was, like I said, it was almost Tyson-esque, you know? It was almost Tyson-esque the way he just ripped that shot, that little 1-2 combo. And right around the 113 mark in the third round, Another left uppercut to the head and then left to the body knocked him out. It was a wrap. So, Gassiev, everybody wants to kind of give the just hand over the World Boxing Super Series Cruiserweight Muhammad Ali title to Usyk, Alexander Usyk, which I get. I do get. The guy's talented. But let's not forget Murat Gassiev. This guy's got power. He does have some skill. He doesn't have the pedigree as a lot of these guys, but he's looking better and better. And it seems like as he steps up in competition, so does his skill level and so does his game plan. Because I mentioned this in the last broadcast and a couple times before. Last year, May 2016, I was at that fight with Gassiev ringside when he scored one of the best knockouts of last year. And it was impressive, of course, but man, the amount of punches he got hit with in a short amount of time in that first round and how pink his face was at the, that early into it, it just, to me, I was just like, wow, dude, I don't know. This guy's got pop and everything, but that Lebedev fight, for me, it really opened up my eyes to him a little bit more. Usyk should definitely still be the favorite, don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying, don't sleep on this guy. Don't sleep on him because he's got some skill, man. He's definitely got some skill. This was from Sunday morning before we get to that HBO card. This was on ESPN2. Murata against Indom. This was an interesting fight. The first fight, this is a rematch fight. In Japan, I think it was over, I think it peaked at 30 million, or it had 30 million viewers over there. Did pretty good considering it was super early on Sunday morning in the States as well. But the first fight, clearly Murata should have won. And Dom completely got the gift decision in that one. Totally lost that fight. And pretty handedly, too, I may add. Definitely handedly. I mean, it was, I don't know, man. It just didn't look right. It was just like, really? He won, huh? Wow, that's pretty crazy. I just I couldn't see it, man. I definitely couldn't see it. I was a little, well, I shouldn't say surprised, but in the rematch, beyond what, the second round for Indom, beyond that was about it. You know what I mean? That was about it. And that was still a really fun two-way round. He just landed a little better shots. But overall, overhands rights by Murata. He would close stronger a lot of times in these rounds. Started letting his right hand go, like, freely. And just overall, by the fourth and fifth, wearing him down. You could see the body shots and the head shots are starting to wear down Indom. And then by the sixth and seventh, it seemed like every punch landed affected Indom. You know what I mean? And they called it after the seventh, was it? Or the sixth? It was the seventh. I think it was after the seventh they called it. So kudos to Murata to get that win back, rightfully so, because he had gotten screwed. Let's talk about the unification. That bantamweight unification fight between Ryan Burnett and they call him ZZ, but I think it's Zakyanov. I think it's Zakyanov. But they go by ZZ. Anyway, ZZ, I thought, won the first handful of rounds. Or if you look at the first three, I think he won 2 out of the 3. Let's put it that way. Just rough stuff. Zakyanov, he's trained by Ricky Hatton. And we know Hatton's a mauler. right? He's coming forward. So obviously, it was a very Hatton-esque performance. It really was. The short punches, the harder punches, and just getting into them and grabbing onto them, and it really old school black and white stuff. Seriously, that's how a lot of these fights played out. When you see black and white fights, man, they really were just grimy on the inside, and that's what this fight was. But Burnett, slowly but surely, I actually gave him the second round because I thought he closed a little better. Third round had some really great stuff in spots. Once again, though, I thought ZZ closed that round better. Fourth round, Zakyanov had a good early start, but then you could see the busier, the more effective fighter, the jab started to be able to, between Burnett's jab and his footwork of just creating enough distance after landing a punch, or, not letting ZZ just come on in and get that close to him as much he had. I mean, there was times where Burnett pushed him back, but just not that much. A lot of times he was standing his ground, but he also would take a step back or a step to the side and to create a little space so he could get his punches off and not just get mauled. But that jab really, that was really good. I like the jab there. The what was it? The fifth round? Fifth round could have went either way. I favor Zakyanov, but it was very competitive. I just think that maybe some of the flashier punches were Burnett, but I thought he was just a little bit more steady through the round, and he landed the harder shots in the fifth round. Very competitive, though. Then, pretty much, I'm looking at my scorecard right now. Pretty much, I gave it all to Burnett after that. He actually started getting to the body kind of one shot at a time and kind of pop-shotting as well. Throughout the fight, both guys actually got to the body pretty well. Good distance, started sticking and moving. A little bit more comfortable the last, say, 4 or 5 rounds, I thought, for Burnett. He showed his all-around skill. So I had it like 8-4, 9-3 in favor of Burnett. I think about 8-4 fits. And this is where you can start to see him just outlanding him, outclassing him at some point. Burnett landed 214 to Zakyanov's 132. And he was busier, too, 646 overall to 547. More accurate, 39% to 24%. So one scorecard, though. Now, at least they got him right, the scorecards, with Burnett winning. But 116 to 112 is just silly, in my opinion. Just silly. And I'm sorry, 116 to 112 is fine, but the 119-109 is just completely silly. So you saw one round. I mean, the first round, rounds 1 and 3, you could definitely give to ZZ. So to me, it's just ridiculous. Even the 118-109, 10-2, I don't know. I'd at least give them 3 rounds. But like I said, at least they got the actual outcome right, which, considering how boxing can be and how, the scorecards can really throw people for a loop and turn people off from the sport and, obviously crush the dreams of fighters. To me, at least they got it right. But it was a little wide, but now Burnett is a unified bantamweight. So that's a good look for him, man. Very good look for him. He looked pretty good, man. I thought he had a good overall performance. I thought he made Burnett enough adjustments, to clear that space that he needed, and I was pretty impressed. Now, Jezreel Corrales kind of came on the scene in the last year and a half. Kind of surprised people. Pulled an upset. I've never been overly impressed where there was just an outing where I thought, man, Corrales is a handful of anybody. And the way his style is, he kind of still is a handful for people. But in this fight, I actually thought there were moments where I thought, wow, this guy, he looks really sharp tonight, Corrales did. Here's the thing. Jezreel was, I think, 134 for a 130-pound fight. I think he was 134, and then, they give you 2 hours to try to make it. He could only not even drop off a full pound. He could only get to 133 in a fourth, basically. So it was like, well, you're screwed. So unfortunately, he lost his title that way, and I'm not really sure. I mean, he didn't look like, I don't know, the weight seemed all right when you saw him in the ring. He didn't look bloated or anything, and I really don't know what happened. I really don't know. I haven't heard too much out of the camp as far as his habits in general. Did he get sick the last 10 days? You'd think we'd hear a big story about that already. But sometimes you get to that target and your body just can't do it anymore, and it's best to just give up trying to make the weight because your body's basically denying you access to that now. It's just like saying, no, dude, you're done. But if you go too far with that, sometimes it is better just to, like I said, just stop, take the fine, lose the belt, and that way you can actually still fight all right in the fight rather than it wearing you down so much that you end up losing anyway. Well, in the end, it really didn't matter because Machado, now 19-0 with 16 KOs. Machado knocked him out, but that's not to say Corrales didn't look good. Because I thought he did, man. I thought he actually did look pretty good in the spots. Now, Machado actually had a big right-hand counter, but that was about it in the first. Otherwise, it was all the busier fighter, the sharper fighter was Corrales. He was pot-shotting him. At times, he would just land this lead left hand. By the third and fourth round, though, you did start to see Machado landing some good shots in a row, just maybe not enough, but closer rounds is what I'm saying, and I think that I'd say the last, 75 seconds or something of that third round, you could see Machado starting to get to him a little bit. Kind of a funny moment in the fourth, the mouthpiece of Corrales pops out, Machado caught it. Perfect catch. It was kind of funny. Anyway, by that time, Corrales still had a stiff jab, sticking and moving. Some combos late in that fourth round. Fifth round, left hand. Kind of a delayed reaction by Machado. He fell forward on the knockdown. So that was a 10-8 round for him. And if you look at after 5 rounds, Corrales punch-wise, landing 60-22 with that knockdown too. So beyond a couple of moments, like I mentioned, probably that big right hand, that big hand counter in the first round, couple of moments, but not much in that first 5 rounds. So you thought Machado's just getting beat here, and Corrales is probably looking the best I've seen him. That's not to say I've seen fight 8 and fight 12 in like every single fight, but at least he's going against an opponent where it's at least worth measuring against too. You know what I mean? But then I thought, well, really the next round after that knockdown, Machado actually hurt Corrales with the right hand. And it's to the point where Corrales was so hurt he was trying to just hold on for dear life, and he tackled Machado. Corrales literally did. In the last part of that round, last chunk of that round, he was just holding the rest of it. So he did land a couple of good shots in the last part of the 6th, but you could see Machado kind of find something there. However, though, in the 7th, I felt like Corrales landed this leaping overhand left. I think it was midway that kind of hurt Machado. Then it was back and forth. You're like, all right, did Corrales kind of gain back that momentum right away and just grab it and say, no, you're not going to have that just yet? That's what it kind of felt like to me. Like that was kind of your moment. You really needed to push in that 7th round. Well, with in the 8th round, with under a minute, 55 seconds is what I said in my notes, Corrales went down hard, face first, and it was in an exchange. So they both were landing left hands. And if you haven't seen this fight, it's worth it to go back and watch this fight, man. I mean, the fight itself was good, but the exchange at the end, it's definitely worth checking it out, that exchange at the end, man. It was pretty wicked. Now, Corrales went down hard, like I mentioned, and usually when you go down face first and you fall forward like that, generally speaking, boxers have pretty good balance, right? And when they lose enough body control where they cannot, where they can't control themselves of falling forward with at least getting an arm out to stop it, a glove out to stop their fall, or even an elbow, something. When it just goes down like that, it looked pretty bad. And did he beat the count? The ref said no. It seemed like to me he didn't beat the count. Corrales was down there for a chunk of time, and sometimes you got to show a little bit more life because, yeah, he did make it to his feet, but it was right at the 10, you know what I mean? And it was like he was just getting up, but we all know by 9 you got to pretty much be up. You can't. It's not like a tie goes to the runner situation. It's not like that at all. Tie does not go to the runner. You know what I mean? It just doesn't. That's just not how it works. So, it is what it is. That's all I can say. Good fight though. Machado, like I said, came off. He came off the mat because he was down too. And like I said, after that 6th round, after it looked like he was hurt, coming off a bad round, looking like it was going to be a dominant performance by Corrales, he came back, swung all that, momentum to him, hurt him, but then Corrales got it right back in the 7th. And so it was an interesting fight, very interesting fight. I had a lot of fun watching it. Really big by Machado to get that done. Also, last fight I'm going to talk about, Gabriel Rosado beat Glenn Tapia. He stopped again. What was it, the 6th round or something like that? I'm not really going to go in on this fight too much because, if you heard last week, anything about breaking down this fight or whatever, you know how I felt about the fight. I just don't need to see Tapia taking any more punishment. That's just the bottom line. And I'm sure he's been told this 100 times or whatever by now. And you got to feed your family. You got to do what you got to do. I'm not definitely not ripping him. But in the same breath, there's certain things that, and this is boxing. So it's not like when I say there's certain things that you don't support, there's not many things that you're not going to support. You know what I mean? Let's just be honest. Let's just be honest about it. There's just not that many things that you're going to, and I didn't tell anybody, I wasn't hollering for boycott the fight or anything like that because, been there, done that. I mean, if you go back and look at that Muhammad Ali versus Larry Holmes fight, and actually, a hospital in Minnesota said there's no way that he should be stepping in the ring. Like, not even it's unbelievable. Like, there's no way he could step in a ring, and sure enough, he stepped in the ring. So, there's been worse is what I'm trying to say. There has been worse. I'm not trying to make this out to be some sort of, so I can't believe you let him do this. And, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm also not going to sit there and be pumped about it because, like I said, I think that last May, Tapia got hurt in the 1st round. Basically, any punch that you can land on the guy right now affects him. And he was just lucky enough that his opponent, Quigley, at the time, hurt his hand. So he couldn't really go for the finish. So he decided to box and stay off of him. So, kudos to Gabriel Rosado. Kudos to Glenn Tapia. It's nothing against these guys. Had them both on the show. We had Tapia on the way up, a ton. So it's nothing against these guys. Don't get me wrong. I'm not picking and choosing which guy can put it on the line longer. There's plenty of guys like Orlando Salido or some guys out there that you're thinking, man, you should really give it up by now, you know? So I'm not saying that there's not worse cases out there, you know? But I don't know, man. Tapia to me just does not need to be taking that kind of punishment anymore. It's just the bottom line. And I don't want to see it. You know, like I said, make your living, do what you got to do, but just no thanks, man. No thanks. So anyway, I didn't really tune in too much to that one, as you could probably tell. Just wasn't my cup of tea because of because I just seen him take too much damn punishment, man. It's just too much. So anyway, like I said, though, congratulate. Hey, he didn't get hurt in this one. Like hurt. So, is that a good thing, though? Does that mean he thinks, well, I can just bounce back and build my way back up and whatnot? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where both those guys go. But yeah, man, not necessarily a big fight that I necessarily want to see, but to each his own. Like I said, it's really the safety of Tapia at this point is just, I think the writing's on the wall. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not out here telling you to boycott anything. I'm not out here getting on my, my throne saying, oh, man, I decide which fighters can fight and which fighters can't and all that. But like I said, I watch Tapia's last couple fights, man, and come back and tell me that he should be fighting. I just don't see it. Anyway, in the second hour here, we are going to get into the return of Anthony Joshua, who arguably is the biggest star in boxing. I think if you look worldwide, he probably is. They just put 90,000 in Wembley Stadium for an outdoor fight in April against Klitschko for Anthony Joshua. And now they're in an indoor stadium. I want to say it's like the largest indoor stadium or one of the largest indoor stadiums in the world. I think it's called Principality Stadium. Eddie Hearn has been saying, well, we knew they sold 70,000 a while ago, but he said it's up to 78,000. I don't know if they can actually get to 80,000 or if they cap it out at some point, Sometimes they do that for boxing events. Just like Wembley Stadium. Well, it holds over 100,000, but they could only do 90,000. So, not that they couldn't sell the rest of the tickets, but they would only allow it to be formatted that way. So, huge ticket seller and huge pay-per-view guy over there as well. So, if you think he's the biggest star in world boxing, it'll be the first time we can say that from a guy that's based in the UK. That's a pretty big deal. Now, Lennox Lewis was a pretty big deal. He's a star. But when you had Oscar De La Hoya still fighting, or, in his prime at that time, much bigger star than that. So, and obviously Canelo just did a huge pay-per-view with Golovkin. Actually did 2 pay-per-views this year, over 1 million. Has the 3rd biggest gate of all time with that Golovkin fight. So it's hard to say that he's not the biggest star too. You know what I mean? It's not like people in the UK don't know Canelo, So, and as we know, the pay-per-views are a lot more inexpensive in the UK than they are here in the States. So obviously overall revenue would be up as well, because, if you're charging more, you're obviously going to make more. So, well, not necessarily, because, there's times here where we think, well, that fight should be like half the amount, and maybe they could just make up the difference with volume. Maybe they would get more people to buy this pay-per-view if they cut the price a little bit. But easy for us to say that on the sidelines. But anyway, Anthony Joshua returns against a weathered veteran fighter, solid fighter, no doubt about it. I like Carlos Takam. I thought he beat Anthony. Here I go again with this Joshua thing. Anthony Joshua, Joshua Parker, Joseph Parker. I thought Carlos beat Parker. I really did in that fight. It was a really tight fight. So we'll definitely talk a little bit about that. And also, like I mentioned, the World Boxing Super Series as well. We got a local, I mean, the U.S. guy in Rob Brandt, but a local guy from St. Paul, Minnesota. And he's the dark horse in this super middleweight division for this tournament. If he wins here, he's going to have to face Callum Smith. And I think for both Callum and him, this is probably the best route for them, because clearly this is a step up in competition for Rob in this fight with Bramar. Totally. It'll be his best fighter, even though he's aged and whatnot. He still has some life left in him, although he has to go down a weight class. But as we know, Rob went up a weight class too. And let's say Rob hopefully gets through this one. Well, then he'd face Callum Smith, like I mentioned, and that's a great level of two guys that, there'll be, there's going to be a belt around, right? But it's just a perfect unbeaten contender level guys that I think both of them. Who did he beat? Eric Skoglund. So both of them are going to have, if in fact they meet up, obviously Rob has to do his part of it. And, he is in Germany, so he could get robbed. That'd be a good fight, man. It'd be a great way to get to the Eubank and the Groves, who are more experienced, on the other side of that bracket. So we'll definitely look forward to that in the second hour. CT was on earlier. I think he had to fall off work-related stuff. Let me see. I was gonna go to him, but I just realized he dropped off. He must have had to go someplace. I didn't check my text messages in a little bit here. Maybe he left a message, but let's see. Because otherwise, so I'll let him in just to kind of get him some recap as well to see what his thoughts were. Like I said, I thought Burnett had one of the better performances beyond Gassives. I mean, most people thought, Murat would win, but did they think that he'd win by that resounding of an outcome? I don't know, man. To me, that was impressive to me. Very impressive. I believe we talked real quick last week on this fight for Box Nation and HBO. The Billy Joe Saunders and David Lemieux fight December 16th. I believe that was finalized. Either way, they've had the official press conference now, and tickets, I think, are about to go on sale. That's a good fight. And a lot of people don't like Saunders because of some of the things he said in the last couple of years. I felt like a lot of people liked him right away because he was a goofball and a cornball. But some of the things he said about Golovkin and him not wanting to challenge Golovkin right away, although I appreciate his honesty, I just think when you say that, although fans want honesty, right? But then when you give them honesty that way, then they're like, well, hold on now, dude. I don't want you to say that. He basically was like, I just got my title. I'm not ready for Golovkin just yet. I need a couple of fights, build my way, and then I want to take him on, which I can appreciate that. I mean, he's faced Chris Eubank Jr., he beat him. He faced Andy Lee, he beat him. So he has fought in some solid dudes. So he also said to Eubank, what did he say to Eubank? I think he said something like, right now in this stage, Golovkin could beat both of us. I think in one night or something like that. But he was just trying to say, like, I'm just saying that I'm building back up. You know what I mean? I'm not sitting here saying all this other stuff. I am building back up, and I have a plan. I'm not afraid of them. I have a plan, but in the same breath, you know, I'm going to work my way there. I'm not going to just sit there and tell you some nonsense about, oh, he's ducking me or whatever. And then let's be honest, he did have injuries. And most of it now with Billy Joe Saunders hasn't been Billy Joe Saunders at all. He's gotten hurt. He had a really bad performance because he had been out of the ring for quite some time. His last performance was very good against Willie Monroe, but he got hurt. And then, the dude they call Little Tyson or Baby Tyson or whatever the hell they call him, dude got fucking busted, right? And he's going to go to jail for a long time, more than likely, right? Kurtzides. So that's obviously not his fault. And then he thought, all right, I'll fight Golovkin in June. And then obviously the Canelo and Golovkin fight came together. So that fight fell apart. So recently it hasn't been his fault at all, if we're going to be technical about this. So that fight is done. It does sound like HBO is trying to get Rung Vasai, who just knocked out Chocolatito, in Estrada. That's a fight that a lot of people wanted to see. It sounds like they're narrowing down to February 24th for that fight, Estrada and Rung Vasai. Now, Rung Vasai has a chance to have an option and then take on his I think he has a voluntary defense, and then he has to take on Estrada, who is his mandatory. But it sounds like they're going to go right to it. I will talk a little bit more about Eddie Hearn, talk about Golovkin, talk about a couple other news items to get to. I want to bring in CT right now and see what's going on with him. What's up, CT? How you doing, buddy? I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm doing pretty good. I can't complain. It's kind of funny because at the beginning of the show, I got this different mic, and the way it plugs into my computer is set up differently, and it got my cat's attention. And it started swiping at it, and it unplugged the shit, and I had to shut the show down for like a half second, call back in, and rehook it up, and then my sound got all messed up. It was so funny because I was like, all right, dude, I'm all set. I got the sound right, my mic's right, everything's right. And then all of a sudden, bam, like right when the show started. So kind of got off to a rocky start. It's kind of been the theme the last couple of weeks, whether it's on my end or Blog Talk's end. So I'm glad we got past that hump, but how are you doing, man? Yeah, definitely. Did you see that HBO card at all, that Machado knockout over Corrales, or any of the action from last weekend, man? Exactly the same time. Yeah, they landed exactly at the same time, dude. Yeah. Right. Yeah, that shot though, that Machado, you called that shot. I just remember that too when you said that. You did call that shot, and that was like just a picture perfect exchange left hand by both those guys. Wasn't that crazy, dude? Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah, because he said he was up on the cards. Yeah, I heard that too. You were kind of bent. You were kind of. Can you hear me now? Okay, yeah. I don't know. Something was acting up a little bit, but it's kind of just breaking up a little bit on my part. I'm not sure exactly what exactly is going on, but I think I'm okay. You said you can hear me, so all right. Well, that's important. That's important. Um, did you see that that fight that Burnett and ZZ fight, that Ryan Burnett and Zakina fight at all from the UK that they showed on HBO at all? Yeah, from Ohio. Yep, yep. It was a unification fight, actually. Yep, bantamweight. Yeah, ZZ kind of came at him. He came at him pretty hard right away, and then it seemed like okay, he's it seemed like he was able to adjust, make a couple of adjustments that just gave him a little bit more space because ZZ, even I mean, he was a grinded out type of guy, and his trainer is Hatton, Ricky Hatton, and he fought much like Hatton, dude. He really did. It was like pretty funny to watch him fight because he was really on him. He was just going for it, man, and he would kind of clinch all close, and yeah, it was a pretty fun fight to watch, man. But Burnett made some good adjustments at the end there. Did you see that highlight of Gassiv at all? Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that goes, because they gotta find a way, man. They gotta find a way to get the semifinals over here on, and if you look at it, it's kind of weird because The thing about the audience channel, it's on DirecTV, so that's like 20 million people, right? But then again, Showbox is only, or Showtime's only like 20 million people, right? But you can order Showtime no matter what you have. Whereas that's not the case on DirecTV. If you don't have DirecTV, there's a good chance you don't have the audience channel. You know what I mean? So that kind of screws it up. That kind of screws it up a little bit. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? So is there any kind of news that you heard in the last little bit that you want to talk about, or maybe you just want to get right to this Anthony Joshua and Carlos Takam fight? I wondered, I kind of like this. I like, as far as it being an actual replacement fight, I think it's a pretty damn good replacement fight for Pulev, and obviously he was paid to train as a backup too, so that helps. Sure. Parker. Pretty sure he's gonna fight like somebody just to get a paycheck and just to get like a decent win. I can't remember who it is, but I'm pretty sure he's just gonna fight somebody and then to try to lead to something bigger. But I don't think it's any name of note. I can't remember. I'm kind of spacing the name right now, but I'm pretty sure he's going to take a light touch and kind of aim his way into that. In fact, let me see if they have it scheduled. I'll double check real quick. I know he's trying to target 2018 in Joshua, you know what I mean? And he does seem like the weakest champ. Yeah, right now he doesn't have anything scheduled per se, which is not a surprise because he just fought. But I heard it's just something kind of light, and he's just going to kind of get a camp in, get a win, and then line himself up for some bigger fights. Um, Bellew could, if Bellew were to somehow get past Hay again, a healthy Hay, if that's even possible, a healthy Hay, you know what I mean? I don't think at this point is that possible of Hay being healthy. I don't know, man. He was out of the game so long, and then now he comes back and the first fight you could see he was clearly hurt in the fight. So we'll see. But yeah, that's what it sounds like. That he's just kind of letting it just marinate and try to just have that belt because they know that. I mean, his people have to know that they can't challenge him too much if they really want to get that Anthony Joshua fight, that payday. Yeah. He actually, yeah, I think he's got a fight coming up. Um, I want to say first quarter. There's been a rumored December 16th card for PBC and just Showtime and whatnot. But I haven't heard you'd assume this week or next week they'd announce it. It could be a part where, or a problem that it's at the Barclays and they don't want to announce it and start selling tickets until they, have enough tickets sold for this event, that type of thing. Maybe that's slowing it down. But I have heard this December 16th date. Um, so I don't really know. And by the way, the December 16th date is Saunders and Lemieux is going to be on HBO, but they were also going to do a Burchelt Salido fight, and that's actually knocked off now because Burchelt got hurt. So not totally sure. Yeah, Burchelt. Yep, Burchelt got hurt, man. Dude, and that's what they're talking about, dude. Like, and you know what's crazy is it has nothing to do with like the promoters wanting it per se. Um, like they may just make an interim belt. I think it's the WBC may make an interim belt. I'm pretty sure they're gonna call it and just give them the Francisco Vargas, you know, fight. Obviously, it's gonna be a war, but I mean that's like the last thing that Vargas needs right now. Like, how about we get a soft touch for Vargas? Can we get that? Jesus Christ, man. Yeah, it's ugly, man. This is where the sport can get real ugly because, although don't get me wrong, I mean, I did think that Salido barely pulled the fight off. Shouldn't have been a draw, but I wasn't going to sit there and go over the top complaining about a draw with those guys either because it was a good fight. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's like the last thing I need to see is that fight. And don't get me wrong, me and you, we're both fans of like knock them down, drag them out. You know what I mean? It's not that. It just it's just not fair. It's kind of like that in a way different sense. It's like that, or not way different, but a similar sense, but even worse for me because Salido has power, whereas Gabriel Rosado really doesn't have a ton of power to take Tapia out. Whereas Figueroa doesn't really have a ton of power, I thought, going in to take Guerrero out. Well, I was wrong about that, obviously, because his head was snapping and, going around like 360 almost. So I was wrong about that one, but I don't know, Salido can do some real, real damage compared to those other fighters I just named. And it doesn't even take much damage anyway, because Vargas is just he's a punching bag at this point. Yeah. Hey, have you? Yeah, exactly, dude. It's just like, oh, great. I mean, man. Do you know much about this Robert Brandt guy here from St. Paul? He's in the tournament too. He's taking on Bramer, a guy who had a title for several years over in Germany. He's faced some solid dudes, but he's kind of at the edge of, the end of his career right now. He's trying to make one more run, and he's back at super middleweight, coming down from light heavyweight. Whereas Brandt, who's undefeated, I think he's like 22-0 with like 15 knockouts. He's going up in weight because he was just getting into contender lane, I guess you could say, at middleweight, but this opportunity came up. And if you look at, a lot of middleweights now are with HBO, and if you're not there, you're probably not going to get any of the biggest fights. And money wise, this made a lot of sense for him. So, do you know anything about this Robert Brandt? He's facing Braemar. I'm not sure if I don't know if you've seen a fight from him. Not many people have over here, but that's another fight that you probably have to stream. If you don't have DirecTV because it's on that audience channel. Well, it's the last quarterfinal round here. This is the last fight of the quarterfinals. In this, the winner of this, so it's George Groves and Eubank Jr. on the other side of this, right? Who made it to the semis. That's a fight. And then there's this Callum Smith, who's an unbeaten super middleweight from the UK. He was actually going to fight Durrell, but Durrell wanted it in the title shot in Flint, Michigan, and this, that, and the other. And that's the one that kind of went to Benavidez. And Durrell ended up getting out of the Benavidez fight because of an injury, he said, even though he's fighting here in the next couple of months. But so he'd be facing an unbeaten Duke Callum Smith, who, you hear a lot about this guy from hardcores over there. He just has yet to been able to prove it. He was trying to fight with DeGale. He was trying to fight with some other guys. Durrell, like I mentioned as well. So it'd be basically like an unbeaten contenders going head to head in the next round, which actually makes a lot of sense for both of them, since both of them don't really have a lot of championship experience. Yep, both of them would be undefeated. So it's actually a good way on this side. You get the Groves and Eubank Jr., which will steal all the headlines, and that'll be a lot of shit talking in that fight. But in the same breath, you'll get you'll get the